Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I'll be able to start. So, hello everyone. My name is Vincent Kelleher. I'm a software engineer in the Gaia X CTO team. So I've had the honor of working on the Gaia X ontology. So today I'll be presenting some of my work, some of the work of the Gaia X working groups, and how you can use the ontology to extend it and even just have a look at it and understand how it's done. So the summary is pretty simple. I'll present LinkML, which we massively use for generating the ontology. It's one of the cornerstones of this presentation. Then I'll present the working group. And I've noticed that I've put two chapters in the wrong order, but so I'll start by the working group. I'll present our pipeline to generate all the artifacts, and then I'll explain how the ontology is broadcasted and how it can be extended. So let's start with the working group. The ontology is maintained by a working group that's named the Service Characteristics Working Group. It's a working group that has been working on the ontology for almost 2 years now, if I remember well. It's a member driven. It's the building cycles, sorry, are member driven. Uh, and there are weekly meetings to mostly review and discuss new features for the ontology. The meetings are very interesting as the group is composed of ontology experts and also IT taxonomy experts. So there are very interesting subjects and they can become pretty complicated. The most of the work is done on describing how an infrastructure works, what are the components, the links between the components. So it's really the base of all the data in Gaia X. To be able to produce artifacts from the work that the working group is doing, we use LinkML. So LinkML is a linked data modeling language. It's developed in Python and it's mostly based on YAML files. So what's the magic of LinkML is that it's capable from a single YAML file to output multiple formats. So I'll show you later on what it's capable of doing, but there are multiple generators. So the input is always the same. It's a YAML file with a specific markup language that's maintained by LinkML. And then you have generators which produce an output artifact. So you can produce Python, TypeScript, Pydantic, JSON LD context, and there are like 25 generators, if I remember well, and it's pretty powerful. It's an open source project on which the Gaia X team worked a lot. We've contributed a lot on that project. Everybody is free to see all the source code of the generators, the runtime, the modeling language, and everybody can easily contribute to each generator or add new features. It's a pretty big project that's there's a steep learning curve at the start, but once you get fluent and acquainted with it, it's really nice to work on it. And I'd like to emphasize that the community is awesome. There's a highly qualified community. They have a Slack channel on which a lot of people exchange, and a lot of the questions are really in depth, and things can get really very detailed. So it's a really nice project to work on. So a quick description of our pipeline. I'm not going to go into massive detail, give all the source code and all everything works. Everything is available on GitLab. So there are links at the end of the presentation, and if you need, you can contact us on Slack to see how you can access everything that has been done. So the main entry point is LinkML. We have multiple YAML files because we've divided them, but everything is YAML at the start. And from that, we're going to generate JSON LD context, shackle shapes, and a null ontology. On the other side, we're also going to generate an NPM library, which at the moment isn't used because it's just an idea in a way, a proof of concept. But the idea later on is to make all the artifacts I've mentioned before available to JavaScript and TypeScript projects, but also generate data classes. But that's for later on. At the moment, it's only a proof of concept. If we go back to the first artifacts I was talking about, these artifacts are going to be pinned on IPFS. I'll give a bit more detail in the second slide. Then the Gaia X registry is going to collect the data on IPFS, which is the interplanetary file system for those who don't know about it. And then the registry is going to expose everything as a REST API. That REST API is going to be redirected with the W3C Perma ID project, which is massively used in ontology, context, and all RDF related projects. So that will allow us, you'll see in later slides, to have a single input URL, which is w3id.org/GaiaX. And then all the rest, all the magic happens. The end users can collect data from the NPM package, which is not the main source at the moment, and from the multiple REST endpoints, which are redirected by W3C Perma ID. To go into more details about the IPFS part, everything is stored, everything about the Gaia X ontology is stored on a GitLab repository. There's a GitLab CI job that's run each time there's a commit or a merge request or whatever. Each time that runs, it's going to generate the artifacts. It's going to push all these artifacts to the Gaia X IPFS pinning service repository, GitLab repository. There's going to be a deployment of that pinning service. And the pinning service is going to run with a specific schedule. And it's going to first start by pinning the artifacts to IPFS. So to make them available on that decentralized file system. They're going to collect unique CIDs, which point to either folders or to the artifacts directly. And it's going to push these CIDs in the DNS entries of our OctoDNS project, which means that then once that is done, the registry with its own schedule will be able to query the OctoDNS instance, collect the IPFS CIDs, and it will then request through IPFS. It's going to collect all the artifacts that have been pushed previously. That allows us to have a truly decentralized or distributed system, which means that in the near future, anybody can publish their own artifacts and their own ontology if they want. I've given a lot of information. Are there any questions about this part? Perfect. I hope I didn't lose anybody. Moving on, then another part of our pipeline, which is very important, we've got the artifacts, we've shared them, we've pinned them, we've produced an NPM package, but at this stage, nobody knows what the Gaia X ontology is and how to use it. That's why we have documentation that's also generated by LinkML, which shows the variety of output generators it has, which uses mkdoc, and we produce it and expose it as a simple web page. So the address is here, as I told you, w3id.org/Gaia X, and this is what it looks like. So you're gonna have basic web pages with a tab for each type of element, and you'll be able to see each of the Gaia X classes, the links they have between them. There are nice little diagrams to explain everything, the different attributes they have, how they're used, the relationship between them. So it's really a useful system. I'd also suggest to users and end users to use the search bar at the top, which is very useful when you're looking for information. We've generated the artifacts, we've explained how to use them. That's great, but how do I concretely collect them? How do I really use them? How do I reference them? How do I use them as a shackle, as a turtle prefix, as a JSON LD context? Well, as I was telling you, everything goes through the W3C Perma ID project. And what we're going to do is with a single URL, we're going to expose multiple artifacts depending on the content type, on the MIME type you're looking for. So if you want the shackle shape, you're going to do an HTTP request, a GET request with the text/turtle MIM type as the accepts header. If you want the JSON LD context, you've got the application LD plus JSON. And this is going to probably evolve if ever we propose new artifacts. We'll be able to expose them through that. This means that when you're describing either JSON LD or if you're just describing, I don't know, a turtle file or whatever, you can use that single endpoint to be capable of sharing the same vocabulary between different files and applications. So that's really RDF at its best. It means that whatever the encoding is, it's going to have the same semantics. And that's why we went for that single endpoint. People who are observing this slide are going to say, there's another endpoint at the bottom that looks a bit more messy. It is indeed, but it allows people to extend the ontology. There are multiple ways of extending the ontology, the Gaia X ontology. You could grab the shackle shapes, copy them, download them, and just add whatever you want in them. Do the same thing with JSON LD or the whole ontology. That's cool. It's going to work. But the real state-of-the-art method we suggest is extending it directly through LinkML. LinkML has introduced import features which allow you to import local files, local LinkML files from your projects. But also it has something that's really powerful. It's that you can import LinkML files from URLs or from external projects. That's something that we did with the URL you could see on the previous slides. It's not very nice, but it's compliant with the LinkML implementation. So with this simple YAML file, so it's just a snippet, you could go really further. I've created a test ontology with the default prefix, which is going to be Gaia X. I'm going to import our ontology by saying the prefix of the Gaia X ontology is the URL we had previously. And we then import the types from that URL. What that means is that as soon as you're going to run LinkML on that YAML file, it's going to be capable of understanding the whole vocabulary and the whole ontology. Then you'll just have to say, okay, I want to build, for example, a Gaia X member. I just say that it's an extension of the legal person. from the Gaia X prefix, and it's going to collect all the attributes, and it's going to be compatible with any output you're going to build. Is going to be compatible with the compliance engine from Gaia X, as we now manage subclasses. And you'll be able to tell people, I have an ontology, and I don't need to manually modify each output file I want. I'm going to modify the JSON LD, the whole ontology. No need for that. I've got LinkML. I just call the generators I want. I want to call 25 generators. No problem. It's the same input file. The same semantics are conserved from the input to the output. So that's the magic of LinkML. It allows to describe your ontology, be part of a great community that's working on ontologies all the time. And it also allows the ontology to be more open and to be able to be shared and extended and used by multiple actors. I've put a few interesting links with the LinkML documentation, the Gaia X ontology documentation, and a few other things, and also the W3C best practices on how to publish vocabulary. And all that's left is to thank you. Are there any questions? I understand there's a lot of information. So if someone has a question, don't hesitate. Kai?
Yeah, I got one. So I'm not an ontology specialist at all. So quite a drawback. I need to improve there. However, this addresses one key concern I always had, and it looks like it has been elegantly solved. Where, if you can guide me, if the time allows, if I want to add one single attribute to a Gaia X participant credential through this, I would start with the YAML file, right? And add it and describe it there, correct? And then I have my forked ontology, which could be compatible to the rest.
Exactly. So at the moment, I'm going to be totally transparent with everyone here. This is mostly a proof of concept. It hasn't been used because we didn't have time to do test implementations of this. But if I were to do what you're suggesting, I just follow this example. I'd replace registry.lab.gaix by the W3ID URL. It's an old snippet, but I'd use that. I would describe my class. I would decide what is the parent of this class. So seemingly you're talking about a participant, so it's going to be a legal person, which is a legal person is the new name for legal participant. It has changed. So what I do is I just describe that, and if ever you want to override something or add an attribute, to add an attribute, you just need to have a look at the LinkML documentation, and you'll see that there's the attributes property, where you can describe all the additional attributes. If you want to override one, you can use the slot_usage property of LinkML, which is going to allow you to say that such an attribute doesn't take only a string, it has to take a URI or whatever. And then you can just work on with this.
Okay, I will try my worst. And I know exactly what kind of attribute I want. Of course, it's a public address, which is a primary identifier in Ponto6 to extend the legal person scheme to have another identifier here. Wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome. Christoph, I see.
Yeah, very short questions. Yeah, thanks. Do we have plans, or did we do that already, to sign the published ontologies?
At the moment, we didn't. We don't have any signature on it at the moment.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I think I see Pierre unmuted himself. We already have examples of signing artifacts and signing things with Xades, which I'm not very familiar with. But I think, Pierre, if you want to add something.
So when the type of artifact has a format already that can be signed, like the list of trust anchor, there is already an entity standard that supports in XML with the signature unit, we will use that. And when there are type of artifact, like let's imagine a PDF that we want to sign, we are not probably going to sign the PDF because otherwise we'll have to write specific custom code for every of the possible format. We are going to use a format which is part of an entity standard, if I remember correctly, used by the Estonian government when you want to package things and sign them. It's basically a zip file with a XADES inside.
Okay. Thanks.
And the XADES, instead of having the payload of the content being signed, has a reference with the hash of the file, and everything is bundled together inside the zip file. And I can find quickly the format is called SCSIE. I will copy paste it in the chat.
That's fine. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Christoph. Wolfgang, sorry, you've got a question?
Yes, indeed. We did a lot of ontology work in our project. And at that time, we used mostly the OWL format with the Protégé editor to define ontologies, which is now actually downstream in your pipeline. And if we want to integrate these kind of ontologies, what would you suggest to proceed?
You mean to integrate an OWL ontology into LinkML, for example?
Yes.
Well, that has already been done, if I remember well. There are a few, if you have a look at the issues and maybe the documentation of LinkML, I've already been pointed towards a command line interface that allows you to interpret OWL or shackle or turtle or whatever into LinkML. I don't know if it really works correctly, because I didn't test it into a big extent in a way, but normally it should be possible.
Okay. Thank you.
And don't hesitate to contact the LinkML community. That's a subject that came up pretty often, if I remember well. They have a Slack channel, which is which is moving all the time. So it could be interesting maybe to contact them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Joshua, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. When I review your documentation, the one that you have there at the top, the Gaia X, it seems that a lot of the ontology is like built by Gaia X, and there's very little that has been imported from pre-existing ontologies. A good example is that one at the bottom where you have legal person. So there are several ontologies that have an extremely large already, again, groups of ontologies and entities and properties that define that legal person. You also have definitions of things like assets and disks and stuff. There are ontologies that have been built by people in Gaia X already, because I have found them in W3C, that define infrastructure, data centers, networks. Why are none of those things already pre-baked into this?
Great question. That's something I've been working on with the service characteristic working group. To give you the context, they started working on LinkML and these things a bit more than a year ago, I think. I see that Pierre has his hand raised. And at the time, I'm not sure that that everything was possible on integrating external ontologies. From what I know, if you want with LinkML, if you want to integrate external ontologies, it takes a bit of time. You have to really be cautious of what you reference and how it's referenced, etc. So it's not the easiest task. But if you have a look at the ontology, you'll see that we use QDT. We've tried to use vcard as soon as possible. And this is the first time with the Loire release. This is the first time that the service characteristic working group ontology is going to be shared and used by the public. So what you see now is something that's really going to evolve. And I think your question, we're going to have it a lot. And in the near future, probably a legal person would maybe be replaced by something from another standard, another context. But at the moment, it's just a stepping stone, this ontology.
Sure. One of the things that I would say, and I had a meeting last Friday with a few ontologists, and they got really angry when I said this, but you have to be mindful that ontologies are technical and they are complicated, and if you're going to have people using them, you're going to end up having a lot of spaghettis, because unfortunately the way those things have evolved is that there's terms that have been defined many times, and once you release something that has a GX legal person, it's going to be impossible to reverse engineer it backwards into something that can be used by another ontology, because all your checkers will go and check GX, not whatever new thing you have. You have to be very mindful with that. Pierre and Jasir have seen some of the work that I have done where I am removing a lot of those dependencies, so they become like below for the system. I believe that the principle of any piece of software is to fix your problems or making things better for you as a manager, not just as a machine. But you have to be mindful with that. That's what I raised this about the ontologies that already pre-exist, because it's a very common issue that an ontologist, because they like doing ontologies, they will go and create an ontology rather than going and doing some research 5 minutes in Google. Does legal person already exist anywhere else? And then just importing that. They like to redefine all of these things.
Yeah, that's true. It's also the issue at the moment, and it's mostly that you cannot easily import an ontology into LinkML when it doesn't have the LinkML format, because it means you have to maintain it. So if ever there's something that changes in the ontology, you have to rerun the command line interface I was talking about and make sure everything is up to date. And that's why Gaia X we went towards publishing the ontology as LinkML. It's that people will be able to reuse it and extend it. We cannot expect from QDT or vCard or whatever to all have LinkML compatible versions. It would be a lot of work, but we'll have to find a solution for that in the near future, indeed.
Yes, you also have to be mindful. Like I have an example with IDS. I was reviewing their specification, and in some cases as well, people tend to hack. And you have an ontology, and then you have the set of rules, and the rules are in English. And for me, if something says you must to do something, you definitely must do it. And it's sort of, you have to be also very careful with those relationships, because once they become a shackle file, it's impossible to reverse engineer them.
Yes. Pierre, you wanted to add something?
Yes, most of the points have been raised. So thank you, Benoit, for mentioning what I wanted to say. There has been a huge effort by the working groups to integrate existing ontologies. DCAD, vCard is one of them. The road to remove all the not invented here syndrome where we duplicated things, because we still have a lot of them, is a very long road. There is, for example, there are ontologies that I would like to reuse from the European Commission project called CEMIC. But that needs to find also how do we integrate them. The best way to help on that will be to join the working groups to write the merge request and get that. Yeah, approval of merge request, we can handle that. But writing the merge request, because us, the staff, Vincent, the rest of the team, we learn on the spot. I mean, we learn as we make progress. And if someone has already knows already how to reference to existing ontologies without having to reinvent the wheel, that will be super useful and appreciated.
Indeed, and the working group is really very open. When I arrived, they've been very welcoming. and they really appreciate that people contribute. As usual on Gaia X, we like contributions. That's something that's always true. Are there any other questions? Okay, so I think we can wrap up this tech deep dive. I wish to thank everybody of these 72 people for your presence and your time. It was great sharing with you, and I see all the clapping. Thank you very much, and have a great afternoon, and see you at the next tech deep dive. Bye.
Thanks, Vincent.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank you very much for the exchange.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.